Mhm. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. You creatives, you community, you kind folks out there, thank you for joining me because this week we are talking about festivals, celebrations, honors, holidays, and all the things in between. The traditions and the things that we can hold dear to ourselves, and use them for RPG fuel. Not certain. Yeah, before we, if you join the Discord, if you prefer Discord and you want to join it, or you just want to listen in on audio, you can do that over at Fantasy Grounds College, and then join their Discord server. And then on the left, slide all the way down to the boiler room. I always say that's where the cool kids hang out, but that's because before and after the show, we tend to talk about things that are slightly or greatly off topic, and we got to talking about anthropomorphic animal role-playing games and the list thereof. But anyway, um, we love getting squirreled on this channel, and I refuse to do so too much. Anyway, today is World Building Wednesday, and each week we take a subject. We're talking about festivals, um, etc., right? Holidays and things, and we're going to take that and we stretch it out all week, and we subdivide it with different themes. Monster Monday, we have a Discord Tuesday, we have a World Building Wednesday, which is today, and Third Pillar Thursday, which is it's kind of my baby. Third Pillar Thursday has to do with the third pillar of tabletop games, which is exploration, and then we have Future Friday, which also is one of my favorite subjects, meaning using modern era, modern meaning like 19th century, if you consider that modern, all the way into the extreme far future, and of course using that as a method of narrowing down our subject to talk about tabletop role-playing games. But today we're talking World Building Wednesday. So, and we take the subject and we're going to build a world around the thing we're talking about, festivals and holidays and such. So I'm going to start this out by stealing something from a role-playing game that has a lot of passion about it. I'm not exactly sure how popular it is. I could never disseminate that. Figure out how many people play the game or own it or know it, of its existence. But I'm going to steal something from this role-playing game, and we're going to build a world based on this thing that I'm about to tell you about. Now, the role-playing game is called Within the Ring of Fire. What Roth, Within the Ring of Fire, has a very unique calendar to it. And the calendar is based on the gods. And then in this world, it's very, to me, it reminds me of a world put together by a coalition of gods that just could not agree because they're gods and elder gods and spirits and demigods and whatever the case may be. And they couldn't agree on the world that they wanted. And this big war and conflict culminated in them sharing this world, and sharing the world became known as thrones. And there are, in this particular calendar in this game, there are 77 thrones. And each day, one of the gods gets 24 hours to sit upon that throne. Why am I stealing this and referring this to us talking about festivals and holidays? Well, I'm imagining a world in which every day of the calendar, and that calendar, yeah, you guys got to see the Discord if you weren't part of it. Thank you there. Yeah, squirrel invasion. Yeah. So each day could represent a specific theme, power, divine entity, natural event that could absolutely positively revolve naturally back around upon itself. What I mean is, maybe there's a day of the raven. There's a day of the squirrel. There's a day of swines, day of fire, day of storms. Each day of the calendar of this world that we're going to create has a theme to it, and for good or bad. Now, one of the themes could be the day of war, in which there are celebrations honoring those who have died in the service of war, and on this day are where most of the battles have taken place. Or there could be the opposite version of it. Not going to do it, Rickard. There could be the opposite version where instead of honors, there's fear. Maybe there's a day of wolves, and the 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 most bestial, hungry, aggressive wolves come out of the woodlands and come down from the mountains and come across the plains. And love everyone. Hey, what's going on there, man? What's up? What's up? Yeah, this week we're talking about festivals, dude, and how to incorporate them into tabletop RPGs. And today's World Building Wednesday, so we're building the world around it. So I'm imagining a world where each day has a reason for us to honor that day. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every single day there's a there's a parade in the street. You get a little tired of that, right? It's like, why is the street always filled with ticker tape? Because there's always something like, is today the day of cake? I love cake. Nothing so silly as that. But I could imagine a world where on that day, those events, those things, if it's the day of swine, that like wild boars come out of the woodwork, and the pigs in the farm start to get rowdy, or maybe the older ones fall over and die with their stomachs exploding or something into maggots. So it could be something pretty nasty, right? Although maybe that might be the day of the Day of the Dead, or the day of pestilence, or something of that nature. And you could go very far with this, where much like in the role-playing game Within the Ring of Fire, there are 77 days, which means the 77 thrones. You could number it instead of like a dozen or a half dozen. You can go well into the hundreds, and having that cycle repeat upon itself. Now, again, stealing from Within the Ring of Fire, the amount of daylight and darkness on each day is not based on what our understanding of celestial events is. It's based on whatever that throne is. So there are days where there's literally 24 hours of complete sunlight, and there are other days where there's 24 hours of complete darkness, and different things in between. Now, according to that role-playing game, yeah, I love that movie, The Quick and the Dead. And I haven't seen the latest Robin Hood, the I was going to say John Wick or Wanted version of Robin Hood, but I have seen The Quick and the Dead. The Quick and the Dead is one of these, is a uh, um, it's a small movie with a number of actors and actresses in it that, like, you're just like, wait, where did they come from? And there could be it just, how do I describe this? There could be a reason for there could be a reason for those events happening, much like we talked about the Day of the Dead. Yes, and the Quick and the Dead it's a double entendre, right? It's you're either quick or you're dead. And during that time, the word quick was used for the living, and I believe the quick is even used as a reference to the living in the White Wolf role-playing game, Wraith the Oblivion. Um, Yeah, Malika brings up something saying the protagonist can fight against the antagonist for a day in a competition. Um, yeah, if we have a Day of the Dead, or a day of war, or a Day of Kings or something, those days might be specific to encounters where it's just a natural thing for people to have to have a competition or take on their enemies. And um, thinking of these worlds, and when you're trying to create worlds, you want to fulfill all three pillars of gaming, right? You want that combat, you want that social interaction, you absolutely want to have the exploration part of it, the environment, and the cool. You want to have cool fight locations, right? Now, Tesla Ranger says, so what defines a day if not a sun cycle? The, within that game, within the Ring of Fire, it's the gods. So each god has their own amount of daylight night cycle specified to them. So as the calendar moves, for example, the day of swine might have 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. When it shifts over to the next throne, the next day, say the day of ravens, it might have 22 hours of nighttime and only 2 hours of daylight. It was just based on the gods. Now it's not random. um Tesla, it's not exactly random. It flows like a sine wave, right? So the gods closely related to darkness, it starts to pitch during the cycles, and then it dips back down into sunlight during the beginning of the cycles, right? um yeah. Yeah. Pelor says the world within the Ring of Fire isn't a sphere. It doesn't rotate. It's basically a 24-hour period. You are correct. The descriptor within the Ring of Fire is a physical descriptor. The entire world is a cylinder, and the people live on the surface level of a cylinder, and that is the cylindrical world is literally surrounded by a ring of fire. So it doesn't rotate with you. You cannot associate this with the physics of planets spinning and the earth and the moon and gravity. It doesn't. No. This is a world created in the hands of angry gods. So you cannot relate it to, well, the sun rotates and no. It isn't like that. As a matter of fact, there are two stars in the sky. It's like sexy angry guys. There are many of them that are quite sexy. It's a dark world. It's very adult, extremely adult. There are player races that eat each other. They are loosely defined cannibals. But there are player races that eat other sentient beings in that world. So there are two stars in the sky that represent the eyes of one of the gods that shine down upon the world and such. So in a world where each day belongs to one of the gods. Now, I'm taking it a step further, giving it a kind of like what Malika is referring to. I'm giving it a gaming or gameable effect, so that during these specified days, the day of Raven, the day of the dead, the day of war, the day of light, the day of peace, the day of love, that there's something that overrides the world on that particular day that makes these things far more likely than other days. So, for example, yeah, the day of festivals would be a great idea for, like like everyone's like, hey, let's celebrate the fact that we have all of these days. There might be a reset day. They don't call it that, but there's like, ooh, the day of rest. Wow, but there may be this overriding theme where certain things take place more often than others, so that the day of the quick and the dead is the day where that's the day where the competitions happen. That's the day where, what, I've been waiting all year to take you out. And you're like, okay, today's the day. Come at me, bro. That might be the thing. And yes, you could make the case that this might be a meta gaming kind of thing. Like, well, I know today's the day of Ravens, but why wouldn't there be ravens on other days? And you're thinking, well, it it's not that those things wouldn't happen on other days, but it may be more likely or more oppressive or far more intense. So the day of wolves, it's not that people aren't attacked by wolves or there aren't wolves that exist in the world, but maybe on the day of wolves, they're eminently far more bestial. They might even transform a little bit, becoming like hellhounds. Their eyes turn red and they start to drip at the mouth and stuff. And none of this needs to, somewhat like Tesla Ranger has referred to, none of this needs to refer to any kind of real world biological sense. It could just be, oh, they're just wolves out there and they're regular wolves. But on the day of wolves, every 87 days that rolls around on day number 14, as this cycle starts to loop back in on itself, you need to stay inside, because these things out there in the wild, I mean, they are really bestial. And the animals and the weather, on the day of storms, maybe it just storms those days. The dark clouds roll in for a 24-hour period, bolts of lightning strike down from the sky, there's high winds, and everyone knows it. On the day of harvest, 3 days before the day of harvest, everyone gets prepared. Families travel from many miles away and stuff, because they know today's the harvest day, when all of the fruits and vegetables and tubers and all those kind of things are ready for the harvest for the next year. And if you aren't ready by the day of harvest, you might miss it, and that might mean life or death, especially if you're in the Arctic cold region or something. So Rickard puts into the Discord, the day of Rel. On this day, the Dark One was sealed away by sacrifice of the brave Knights of the Acorn. As the last knight was struck down, they used their last remaining strength to call upon the forces of the Skur. I'm going to pronounce it Scaride. Scaride. I'm butchered that name. The divine lights flew from the trees all across the world to bind and chain the Dark One for all eternity. Now, in that sense, that could be the reason for the day of that, the day of Rel, right? That is the day when, the sacrifice of the knights, yeah, right? The sacrifice that the knights gave to the world sealed away this, the Dark One for all eternity. Well, maybe not eternity, because the day of Rel's coming back again, and that may be the day where everyone places an acorn in their windowsill, or a day when everyone lights a light. Oh, Rickard says the Sciride is Latin name for squirrel. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. Right. So, but that could be a thing. As a matter of fact, there might be some honor to the squirrels because of that day. That they culturally, the squirrels represent the saving of the world by locking away the Dark One, because the day of squirrel. Went right over my. Really, dude, it went right over my head. I wasn't even there in the same mindset. You got me. Do. Oh man. Now, Mr. Spenzar says, for example, the day of wolves could coincide with the blood moon, some extraterrestrial event. The day of storms, the membrane between planes thins and air spirits rampage in the clouds. I like that. Malika says, let's not forget ElfQuest, and in the scene in the Matrix 2, the day of orgies. Yep. Oh, you brought back ElfQuest. Wow, you went. Yeah, you brushed off the dust on that one. You went back in the crate for that one, man. If you guys haven't seen or read ElfQuest, the original four volumes, oh man, that was like our first. That was like, it wasn't it was written as a comic book, but it was very adult. And if you were a young kid sitting in a back of Walden Books or Barnes and Noble or something, what was another one? Yeah, just showing our age. You got that right, dude. Yeah, man. That was we were flipping through those books like, wait, this is a comic. What the orgies? What hold on. I gotta get the next issue. They weren't cheap either, if I'm not mistaken. And if I believe the they still reproduce those books. I think they're still available. I might get them. Cutter and Starwise. Man, Spenzar says the day of laughing. Commonly held belief is that changeling shapeshifters don't get jokes, so everyone walks around telling dad tier puns and persecuting people who don't laugh. Well, you know what? That don't as silly and sarcastic as you got that could be a thing. Who's to say that a particular celebration isn't a thing? And so let's fulfill our three pillars, right? So let's go for combat. You got to have your PCs out there, opening up a can of whoop ass on something. Oh no! You know what I love? Climbing in the small suitcases. I can hardly contain myself. Yeah, dad tier jokes. Oh my goodness! But you could have, and believe you me, if someone is playing in a world where it's kind of dark and you guys are like, oh man, it's depressing. All right, tomorrow we're just going to fast forward to the day of laughter, and then everyone has to come to the game with like their top 10 dad jokes and try to crack everybody to see who's gonna get the laugh or grunt the loudest, like groan, like, oh really? I love my piece of string joke. Piece of string walks in a bar and bartender says, I can't, we don't serve string in here. So the string leaves outside and cuts his hair and pulls it out and makes a loop in his neck and pulls his head through it and walks back in. And the bartender looks him in the eye and is like, aren't you that piece of string? And he's like, no, I'm afraid not. So anyway, you could have boom. You could have a some of these days, these festival days, these holidays could be quite humorous or silly, especially if you're going like, you're getting a little sexy there, day of nakedness. So you wake up and you're like, oh, you walk outside, you're like, I forgot something. Where are my keys? Where's my clothes? Whatever, he's like, that was not a good joke. Tesla, that's not my key. It is today. Better stick it in that keyhole and unlock the door. We're going downhill on this episode. Oh man. Yeah, Dead Man the Storyteller says Borderlands 2 and 3 have a Mercenary Day. Okay. Mercenary Day. You're gonna have your day of work, maybe like a day of business or commerce, the day of the market, or whatever the case might be. Oh no! Don't hold on to it. Ricker says you might say we lost the thread on that one. Yeah. But you see how we can get a little bit bizarre with every day having its own day, which it could get a little complicated. I agree. Within the Ring of Fire has 77 of them, but believe you me, if you, it is the book, The 77 Thrones, is actually quite excellent when it comes to each of the gods having their own throne and such. And I personally would do that, at least narratively, or at least in the beginning narratively, to say that each day of each of the thrones, each of those days that has this particular, day of, and then you fill in the blank, that people are more likely than not to engage or encounter what that particular day is about. Mr. Spenzar says, many festivals or celebrations are to solidify the bonds of the society they are held in. So the easy third pillar is the fear of the outsider, especially in a setting with frontier-style towns. And we did bring that up We did bring that up yesterday, talking about having a celebration of the slaying of a dragon, and enough generations have gone by where they don't, no one really remembers the dragon, but everyone on this particular holiday, celebrates the slaying of a dragon. But then the community starts to incorporate the dragonborn into this city, this society or whatever, and the awkwardness of, oh, that those dragonborn people are our best friends, and then you have this day where everyone's like dressing up and killing lizards and having celebrating the act of killing off dragons, and the dragonborn looking around like, I don't kind of like this. Everyone's having, like, do I belong here? Or, getting pissed off, or do you just ignore it? And, if you do you protest against the Day of Dragons or something, and the where the great warriors killed the dragons, and the people who are descendants of the great dragon killers, what do they say about it? So yeah, we talked about that, Mr. Spenzar, and that is a great way to have to establish some kind of conflict, especially for those who have been for the victims of those days where something traumatic happened to them and their family and their loved ones and their friends, versus the people who've benefited from said actions or what have you. If someone died because they were denied food on the day of harvest, they would be pretty pissed off when the day of harvest comes around and they don't get their fair share, right? Yeah, Rickard says, I do think that story might have been fabricated, yeah, made out of those threads and knots. Pelora says, the day you're born on also affects you. Plus, human tribes are flavored by the day the tribe was created on. That's a bit of a tangent, though. Not necessarily. I think, like Mr. Spenzar says, it's a way to solidify the bonds of society, that it's not just that we celebrate it individually at home, but we even have conversations. Oh, what are you going to do on, and, fill in whatever holiday it is. What are you going to do on Memorial Day? What are you going to do on All Saints Day? What are you going to do on Valentine's Day? What are you going to do on, and then how you celebrate those days can change too, and could even change during the day. Much of here in the States, much of Memorial Day, Independence Day, Veterans Day is a combination of fun and summer and cookouts, combined with, parades. And then there's a little bit of a somber part of it, especially for those who go to the parades and they have like veterans of wars and things of that nature. So for example, a day of fertility could very much celebrate the births of children and even animals and such, whereas it could also be a somber day for those who have lost a child for whatever reason. Malika says, to make the game crazy, there could be a day of killing, like the Purge movies, but the GM has to keep control, focus in the players, and keep the players on their toes. Dude, I was going to go there, man. Yeah, Purge Day. Ooh. But I mean, come on now. You could almost, if you're the GM and you've like kept your players like under a tight leash, this might be the perfect time to go like, all right, guys, tomorrow's the day of killing, and everyone's like, what? Oh yeah, it's the day of bloodletting. It's the day where you can just get away with murder, literally, and nothing happens to you. Although, I love some of the YouTube funny skits, like 3 hours after the Purge Day, trying to go back to work. Your fellow coworkers, like, don't take it personal. Like, I know I tried to kill you yesterday, but we're cool, right? I mean, till next year. Oh man. Ricker says, don't ever get me started with puns. Yeah. Oh man. 24-hour puns. I don't know. That might even tire you out. Or there might be a pun competition and you're the last one on stage. Like, come at me with the puns. You got to make up puns, and they've got like 3 random objects in a basket, and they go, okay, we've got 6-pack of tube socks, um, a basket of cauliflower, and oh, what are these? Brad nails. We've got nails. Okay, you're gonna have to start with that. You got 24 hours to come up with them puns. Pelor says, "I'm gonna drink gin and cry on the stairs. It's tradition." Oh, you're so wrong, P. Although maybe you're so right. Pelor says Purge Day is followed by Orgy Day to rebuild the population with the strong. Ooh, I'm sorry. I'm just getting this image of like Purge Day ends and someone looks at somebody else across the way when Purge Day, they're like dripped in blood and maybe there's like brain matter and gristle hanging off of a weapon and on their bodies, and they're just like, they shrug each other's their shoulders like, it is Orgy Day. And like, yeah, I don't know how long this relationship will last. I'm giving it a year minus a day. Like, yeah, me too. All right, let's go at it. Oh, pretty nasty. Although we're going to have a cleanup day. We got to have a cleanup day. Mr. Spensar says, in the Ivory City, we wash the streets in blood once a year that the sins perpetrated within our walls could be cleaned from us. Oh, no. You're absolutely right. You could have a purge day that makes perfect sense, at least for those people. Rickard says 24 hours of puns, no problem. Delivery is all about timing anyways. Yeah, I mean, having a purge day, even, okay, we're talking about a world in which every day has its theme, and much like ignoring in that particular role-playing game within the Ring of Fire, ignoring the idea of planetary orbits and gravity, and ignoring that, we would have to accept the fact that each of these particular days, for whatever reason, these events happen, and everyone just accepts the fact that it happens. Much like in our world, we have traditions that, while they may be outdated and have mutated over time and shifted, we just accept those days as being a thing. We just accept it. As a matter of fact, we accept it to the point where people who don't engage in those traditions, we look at them as the crazy ones, even if the traditions themselves are awkward or costly or not time effective or what have you. There is St. Patty's Day in Chicago and many other places. They dye the river green. They spend the money to dye the river green. We here around the world, New Year's, they launch off fireworks. I mean, there's quite a few hundred thousands of tons of fireworks being launched in the air hour by hour, going around the world and stuff to celebrate the new year. It's just what you do. So turning the volume up to 11 and making it having the world, the way the world operates, literally shift people to want to engage in a purge day, to engage in an orgy day, to engage in a pun-filled day, might just be a thing. Sure, purge day ends and everyone's like, well, okay, I don't have my murderous rage anymore. I'm fine. That might just be a thing. And though from the outside, we as normal people are like, you don't just turn that on and off. To these people, they do that. And just accept it. If you tell your players you want to play this game, this is the deal. You go, oh, okay. Pelor says, get all the mess out of the way in 2 days, and then you can stay neat. Stay neat the rest of the year. I think so. And that may be how the people, that's how they operate, right? Rickard says, hell, the Drazi with their divide people into 2 colored teams at random and then have them kill each other to determine who rules the next cycle. So weird. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course. Why wouldn't something like that happen? Like, it's population control day. The day of war. The day of war could be everyone picks a random faction to belong to, and they go to war. Everyone's got their like weapons ready, their spiked bats, their blades, they're all dressed in their armor, they're getting it ready, polishing it the day before and stuff. And they're like, oh, tomorrow's war day, we get to go at it. You know, you have that one person from the outside that's like, why? And everyone looks at them like, seriously, don't make me punch you in the mouth. Ricker says, I think Purge Day is one day after the pun day. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rickard says, so weird versions of Killing People Day have already been used in more serious fiction. They sure have, as a matter of fact. We've seen that as a commentary on our acceptance of violence in the world. We've seen it on population control science fiction. We've seen it plenty of times. So it's not a far stretch to have a day devoted to that. So yeah, hell yeah. Mr. Spenzar says most of the weirder celebrations can be justified with religion. A Purge Day in Canada, not going to happen. Purge Day in the city with a majority of Bane worshippers, very profitable. I could see the U.S. heading towards a Purge Day. I could see that. Yeah. Dead Man brings up The Purge and Hunger Games. Yep. All the Purge movies were, they're making a comment, a comment about the state of affairs of society, and who's to say that your world doesn't make a statement about society that each of the days represents, like, I mentioned Day of Ravens, the Day of the Dead, what Day of War, but you could, if you're looking for days to celebrate, you could find things in our world today and reskin them to represent things happening in the world. So you could have there could be a political day, there could be a war day, there could be a gender specific day. You could do things like that if you at your table want to get a little bit more into the weeds, maybe going after far more adult themes in your world. Yeah, you could very much do that. M says, Malika says, I hate to be the people who clean up after Purge and orgy day. Too many bodily fluids, good, bad, and weird. Ooh. Yeah. All right. Today's cleanup day, and everyone's like, oh, really? Everyone brings out their trusty hazmat suit, their favorite hazmat suit, and a spray can and some bleach, start scrubbing things down. There we go, Rickard. Holding on to that pun day, right? You might call it divine punishment. Hell yeah. Plur says the Day of Champions. Make it sound less mindlessly violent than Purge Day, though it is, of course, mindlessly violent. Well, that's a thing too, right? How many of our celebratory days do we do that are so far removed from the original intention of them, much like most of the commercialized days? Pilar says Love Day on February 14th. Yeah, here in the States we call it Valentine's Day, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong there, Dead Man, Valentine's Day is in honor of Saint Valentine, a priest that against the law married soldiers that were going off to war, and the king or nobles at the time, I don't know the specific noble listing, but the leadership wanted to have armies of men that were not attached. They didn't have home attachments, and many of these individuals wanted to be married, and this person decided to marry off many of these soldiers in opposition to the current rulership, and so that's where it came about. Now it's a day to, a once a year thing to, hand out dead flowers to a loved one, and if you don't, you're an a-hole. Of course, chocolates and what are some other things? Stuffed animals and romantic dinners and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much commercial, just like Sweetest Day here in the U.S. It's not as popular. I don't remember ever celebrating anyone talking about Sweetest Day in Philadelphia, but here in Ohio, it's a thing, and it's the equivalent of Valentine's Day yet again. Mr. Spenzar says, Clangarang, Dwarven festival celebrating a rebellion that was won by the oppressed citizens working the day and night through banging out new weapons in the smithies to use against their oppressors. Yeah, it makes sense. Also, where a holiday starts from might be from a single event or certain people or something, and then thank you, Dead Man, brings up Saint Valentine. It could puts that in the Discord. It could be that, say, the dwarven, Clangarang Day, or they might not call it Clangarang Day. They're like, oh, it's Clangarang, and other cultures have purged, but still in effect of illegal, of legally killing. We kind of like it brings up the quick and the dead, right? That might be a thing, and people gather around, or someone has a problem with someone else, and they wait for the Day of Champions to take them on in some kind of duel, whether it's a pit fight or using firearms or knife fighting or something of that nature. And on that day, if you kill the person you have a problem with, everyone goes, oh, okay, I guess this argument's settled then. All right, let's go back to our normal course of action. That might be a thing. And how strange but cool would that be? To any other day, it's looked at as illegal, it's wrong, you shouldn't do it. But on that one day, it's all right, And like you said, a Day of Champions might be the day where especially if your player characters really embrace this. Come on, kitty, sit down. I told you I'd give you head scratchies. On that day, the player characters might be chomping at the bit, like, oh man, how many days is a Day of Champions? Well, it's 3 days away. Good, because I am going to take this dude out. I am going to kill her. She thinks she can take me. Whatever. We're going for it. And maybe they're giving each other the eye across the city streets or something. They're like, you and me. We're going to take each other out. And, even the city is like, you're going to have to wait till the Day of Champions. I know. That's actually kind of a cool way to ramp up the tension of a world in which, when something, Day of Storms is about to come and the Day of Champions is about to come around, the Day of Dragons or whatever, that's a great way to say, hey, we need to get from A to B in enough time to avoid the hazard that is going to be created by the particular day that's about to come about. Every single sailing ship is going to want to get to a safe harbor before the Day of Storms, right? Or the population is going to want to run and hide and take cover before the Day of Dragons. The Day of Champions, people are going to want to pop enough popcorn for the Day of Champions. That'd be really great, I think. Mr. Spenzar says, oppressor group resents the festival while the dwarves loudly celebrate the day, even inviting dwarven smiths from nearby mountains to come ply their trade, gives players a chance at cheap gear. Okay, I could see that. Maybe even there could be many of our celebratory competitions and sports came about through work. So horseback riding, people that are horseback riding enthusiasts have sporting events and such related to the work involves riding on horseback. Strongman competitions came about the same way. Many of our sports, the Olympics, came about through many of it was like an alternative to warfare as well. So that would be a great way for players to engage in the world, even for like the combat, the major combat portions of the world, by having them. How do I I don't want to say non-violently, but to it is celebrated that the PCs are able to kill or battle or have nonviolent confrontations with people or monsters and things because this is the day. We brought up the other day, let's bring this up today, the day of the hunt, where something insidious is out there and it needs to be hunted. And this is the day that they are out of the woodworks and they're, whether they're, I don't know, giant lizards, something to kill out there, manticores, I don't know, blood ravens, the killing those damn wolves that have been, harming people in the day of wolves. Now is the day of the hunt, and it doesn't necessarily need to be one-sided, right? The day of wolves might be the day that the great hunters come out and all the people lock themselves away, and everyone's like, all right, we're gonna have to kill these wolves because they are going to try to kill us today. Pelora says, I do quite like the legal dueling thing. Could still, to bring it back, be a celebration of when Queen Jane dueled King Bob to the death 147 years ago. They're having a historical reason why that day is a thing. Could be a thing. You could even, going so far as to take a little bit from within the Ring of Fire, there might only be a limited number of days, and you could open it up that a specific day is created because of a special event that happens during the PC's era. So something could happen. Maybe, okay, what if the PCs go on an adventure or save a city or something, and a new day is inserted in the cycle of days? And that would be kind of a cool way to honor the player characters in your world, that, between day 38 and 39, we're going to shift everything one day. And because of your actions, a new day has been inserted into those days, and everyone just accepts it, to the point where it literally changes the cosmology of the world. So a message isn't sent around that day 39 is the player's day. Everyone just accepts that that's the new holiday. And that's the day where we honor when the PC saved the town from the goblinoid horde, right? They killed off the bugbears and the orcs and the hobgoblins or something that were doing war with them. And that becomes the new day. And then every day that comes around, day 39 now becomes day 40, and everyone just accepts it without even thinking about it. It just becomes its new day. And maybe like the orcs and hobgoblins and stuff are like pissed off. And on day 39, they're like, we're going to get the player characters back. Oh yeah, they did this to us. We're going to get them back. We're going to make this our day. Rickard says, brings a whole new meaning to the quickening. There can only be one. Oh, I like that. You always plan your early salary negotiations to be on the day before the Day of Champions. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pelora says, I like the idea that every reference to the days as a number written down automatically changes to reflect the insertion. Yeah, that would be really bizarre, but kind of cool, where the players do something and literally moments after that special event happens, all the days have literally changed in the books and calendars. Go to, hey, day 39 used to be the Day of Swine. And then they do the special event. They walk back in the tavern and go, day 39, the day of whatever the player characters' names are or something, the Day of Heroes or something. And they're like, day 40 is now the Day of Swine? That's bizarre. Oh, yeah, the quickening. Yeah, Rickard says the quickening, the lightning effect that happens after two immortals battle in Highlander, for reference, which I get your reference, and maybe people who haven't seen that show. Yes, the quickening, when two immortals battle, and one slays the other, the survivor, after cutting the head off of their opponent, goes through the quickening, and they float into the air, and their body is besieged with lightning that's both energizing them and causing them pain and having them go into kind of a conniption fit kind of thing, and they like their body shakes and they land on the ground after floating in the air. Maybe steam comes up from their body. And what a great way to offer a temporary boon to the player characters because maybe that boon lasts only for that day. They get this like quickening effect, and they gain some kind of benefit from the person that they slayed or something. Like the barbarian kills the ogre and cuts the ogre's head off, and the barbarian goes to the quickening, and now the barbarian temporarily has the strength of an ogre or something. Or someone kills a mage and they get one of the pyromancer's fiery spells. They see their bodies and like a weird flaming effect curls around their body, but they're unharmed by the burns. Or maybe they do get burned, and then all of a sudden their skin heals and the flame literally seeps into their bones, and then just for the day their eyes have show like a fire in the back of their eyes or something. And okay, I'm gonna go even weirder before I read this comment, Dead Man. Each day that a player character receives a boon on each of those days only happens on that day for them to get that boon in the first place. So a player character might end up getting the power to shapeshift into a raven, but only on the day of ravens. And maybe there's a laundry list of 116 different days, and a player character's like, I've collected 37 of them on each of those days. Might be kind of cool, mate. Kind of weird, but kind of cool. Dead Man says, in medieval times, the Catholic Church had over 500 saints and often had to double up on some days. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you look up in your own country's holidays, like a day of, like, how we have like, a day of trees, a day of spaghetti. It's donut day. It's national, and then fill in the blank, right? National hot dog day. It's national sneaker day. I mean, there are plenty of doubling or tripling up of days. So different regions of the world could either have modified that one day, or they could have different days. The coastal area has a day of fishing, whereas the mountain region might have the day of the goat. Malika says the day of the hunt could be the PCs are the hunted, or the PCs are chosen to hunt for some negative and evil causes just to add tension to the game, or to the game, are hunting for right, wrong, or tradition. Maybe at the beginning of the day, the chosen ones have to pick a stone out of a basket, and a white stone means you're a hunter, and a black stone means you're the hunted. That's it. And you better make a run for it. You got 24 hours. All right, punster. Rickard says, literal day. The day only lasts for as long as the sun is up, so sunset is followed directly by a sunrise. Oh man, you're so silly. But yeah, you like you said, but Malika, like for right, wrong, or tradition, yeah, you pick a stone and you're just holding your breath. You reach in and you're like, a black stone. Oh, I'm being hunted, and everyone's like, oh well, okay, better make a run for it. You have 1 hour, and we're gonna hunt you down. And literally the day after, it's like, hey, did you like yesterday? Not particularly, because you caught me in a bear trap and then grabbed me in a net, and then I had to cut my way out. And like, well, it happens. It happens. Yes, and you could have a literal day where everyone's like, oh, I guess today's not a particularly special day. Rickard, surreal day. You have to switch systems and play Invisible Sun for the day. Pillar-ist like, best day ever. You should put periods between those. I'm just picking with you. Mr. Spenzar says, man sprints past the party in the woods and tosses one of the party a black stone and shouts, good luck. Yeah. Hot potato. Here you go. Zoom. Psh, I'm out. Oh man. Zev says, sorry I'm late. Without caffeine, it's hard to wake up proper. Well, today is the day of caffeine, or the day of sleeping in, day of restfulness. Yeah, worst day. Ooh, a day of sickness, a day of reprieve. Yeah, there could be. Imagine a day of pestilence or a day of fatigue, and everyone is affected by it for no good reason. At a minimum, you've got like a head cold or allergies. Your stomach is turning. An old battle wound just hurts to no end. Maybe this is nasty. Maybe an old wound opens up. Oh, as a person who's giving up caffeine, a day of caffeine is torture. Oh, yeah, yeah, they could. Well, we don't all have to enjoy those days. Some of those days might be like, would you please stop offering me coffee? But it's coffee day. It's caffeine day. And just like, oh, get away from me. Which some of these days there would be a sizable part of the population that's like, I am not engaging in this at all. I am locking myself away. Don't bother me. You guys have your purge day. I'm locking myself away and protecting, myself. Now, we didn't really get into much of the combat. Of course, there's going to be a hell of a lot of social interaction. With the combat part of it, like you guys have brought up. Rick says, so no caffeine day is punishment day. Yeah. Oh, you guys are silly. Anyway, we did hit upon some pretty reasonably explainable violence we can have on some of these days, and many of these days. Yeah, we brought that up the other day in the Discord, man. I kind of went a little dark on that and was talking about some of these days. Malika says, let's not forget what the white folks in the South did on Sunday picnics after church here in America. Yeah, it was break out your good old rope. We got somebody to go after, right? Some of those pictures were posted in local newspapers, and they brought their kids. Matter of fact, even though we don't like to think about it, for those who like to listen to podcasts, if you like hardcore history, excuse me, in that podcast, he talked. There's an episode where he talks about pain and torture. What is it? Painfotainment. That torture and executions were a form of entertainment. And that could be, yeah, I love hardcore history too. Yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Zev. I've burned through hardcore history, and he doesn't put out too many episodes, like not regularly, because many of them tend to be like 3 to 4 hour dissertations, but they're done excellently. And I believe it's only one episode, although he's got some that are like multiple 4-hour episodes as well. Yeah, I sure did go dark. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Spenzar says a randomly selected city where all the mages on the continent come together and have their equivalent of a science fair. Ooh, every city is wearing multiple cloaked figures arriving at the same time. Oh my good. Oh, you could have. Hell, I didn't even think about that. You could have, like, what a great excuse to have some of the most chaotic, exotic, arcane things to fill your cities with. People arriving on winged mounts and creatures, zoo animals brought in, trained beasts and things. You could have people selling all kinds of potions and salves, alchemists selling all kinds of things. Just add this to some stew and you can turn invisible. You could fill a city with the science fair, like a person selling like little orbs, and they're like, these are scrying orbs, get 2 for 1 sale. Many of them fake, but many of them real. The mages might have their own entourage, some of them pretty arrogant and walking around like rock stars, where the halfling mage is flanked by like a minotaur and an Eton soldier or something like that, like their bodyguards. Like, don't talk to me. talk to my men, you're like, step back there, citizen. Like, oh, I just want your autograph. You're so great. And the halfling wizard's like, okay, let him through. I'll sign your autograph or something. That would be really fun. That'd be awful. Arcane. Yeah, Mr. Spencer says derogatorily referred to as the arcane flea market. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, you want real fleas. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Zed says the World War I podcast was amazing. It helped me prepare for war in my campaign. I know it's a long listen. I can not more highly recommend listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast about World War I. And I think it's from 4 to 6 episodes long, each of them about 4 hours apiece. And it is amazing. Amazing. I can't suggest it highly enough. Yeah, Rickard says so many paper mache volcanoes. Oh, you leave the student fairs alone. Zevra says, and of course you have the one doof with a homemade volcano. Like, he brings up a table, pulls off the cover, and everyone's like, whoa, is that a real volcano? People looking underneath like, where's the fire come from? Is that the plane of fire? Like, yeah.
Have a good day.
Hey, baby, love you.
I need you to call me when you get off the phone.
Okay. Absolutely. The Heraldrix has spoken. We have come to our hour. Thank you guys for joining. Oh, let me get these weird of the ending calls upon the ending of our configuration we talk about. So yeah. Yeah. Zeb says, and the stream dies. Have it thee. It says if you got some housework, have it play in the background. Oh, I mean, could you? How fun would it be for the players, especially if you have low? You could have a festival of wizards, and a low-level campaign could just be the PCs finding all of the stuff that solving all the problems or the things that went wrong. So someone brings in their magical ant farm, but the ants are all like the size of dogs, and someone's got to get all the ants back into the ant farm. And the ants aren't violent. They're just ants. And they're eating people's clothing off their clotheslines, and they're like digging holes in people's backyards. And the PCs have to run around and get all the ants back or something. Or someone's Pegasus flies off because they see like a local mountain or something. And they're like, ooh, cool. And it flies away. And they're like, I'll pay somebody 50 gold if you get that Pegasus back. And they're like, yeah, cool. Let's do that. Like you could do something where it's more fun on these particular holidays and festival days we're talking about, as opposed to dark and depressing. And then with this cycle, like let's say you have player characters that are the type where they're like, look, I don't mind dark and depressing and adult theme, but we also like to clean our palate a little bit. And this would be a great way to have a world that incorporates all of those things as well. Hey, Pelora, have a great one. Yeah, I know. I need to cut this out. Zevro says, going to be rearranging the house today, getting my mom's old computer desk. Yay. Oh, okay. Good luck with that. It seems like you've been having some problems, man. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Spenzar says, for another week's topic, customs of cities, factions, faiths, and families is a suggestion. Okay. All right. How about I'll mull it over, and I'll do it a little bit on air as well. Although I will be in the Discord, so Mr. Spenzar, if you don't mind going over to Discord, we can talk about a little bit more there as well. Kind of narrow it down a little bit. I like it to be as vague enough that we can pull a lot of ideas, but as specific enough so we don't get too squirrely. Ricker says, the house of the ending is upon us. Stream of thoughts has ceased to be woven. The string has been cut. Yeah. Guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for joining me. I love these streams, man. I'm going to have to get that squirrel in here. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see thee in the Discord. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday, so join us there. See you. Bye.